Yo, what is going on YouTube? Welcome back to the Carolina Country Boy Classic. In today's video, I'm going to be going over how we can catch some of the biggest bass that live in our fisheries every time we go fishing. I'm going to talk about the techniques. I'm going to talk about some of the things you don't think about. I'm going to be talking about everything in between. So if you want to hear it, stay to the end of the video. I'm sure you'll like it.
Yeah! Oh my God. What I tell you, son, we were gonna boat flip them. Yeah.
5-pounder on a swim jig, straight braid.
All right, guys. So the first thing that's got to take place when you're going after trophy bass is something called a mindset shift. Okay. The people who consistently put big bass in the boat and consistently do it day after day, month after month, year after year, have already understood and implemented this mindset shift. And this mindset shift has to take place before anything. Okay. And the first thing we need to talk about when it comes to mindset is the way you approach fishing and on that particular day, right? So the first thing we're going to talk about is the baits. The second thing we're going to talk about is the location. And the third way we're going to talk about it is an approach. Okay. So the first thing is the baits. You have two extremes. You have extremely small and you have extremely big. Okay. Anything in the middle, although we'll catch bass, is not where most trophy fishermen are going to throw for big bass, right? You might get a lot of quality fish. You might get a lot of just average fish, but your big bass are going to come on the two extremes more than likely, right? So your Ned rigs, your drop shots, your finesse presentations, you can get a lot of big bass on those if you know where to throw them and how to use them. On the other end of the spectrum, you have big glide baits, big swim baits, big jigs, something with a larger profile. Those are going to trigger the bigger than average bites, right? That's how you're going to catch your biggest bass, okay? The second thing I want to talk about is location, right? Location is everything when you're fishing for big bass, because you could be throwing the right bait, you could be there at the right time, but if you're in the wrong place, does not matter. You're not going to catch them, okay? So what comes with understanding locations is understanding their seasonal migrations and their seasonal patterns. If you don't have those dialed in, then more than likely you won't know for sure or have confidence in the place that you're fishing in. So that's the second thing you need to understand is you need to get those locations and you need to learn about where you're fishing and really get a grip on where those big bass are moving in and out of. So the third thing I want to also mention is the approach. Okay. Big bass fishermen understand this, that the right fish will come along at the right time. Okay. And yes, I'm not saying that you can't change things and you can't adapt and you can't try other things while you're doing fishing, but the most consistent anglers, right? They are either hit or miss. Okay. And what I mean by that is if they're going to put one bait in their hand all day and fish that bait all day, they're going to have a really terrible day or they're going to have an extremely good day. It's kind of like hitting the jackpot. But the way that we can do this better is we can have 2 or 3 baits on board that covers 3 different spectrums of the water, you know, the bottom, the middle part, and the top. Okay. I like to cover all aspects of the water to make sure that I'm covering everything. Okay. That really makes me a better angler or a better trophy angler because I'm able to cover everything, right? So those are the 3 things that need to happen for your mindset shift in order for you to become a trophy bass fisherman. All right, guys. So the second thing I want to talk about in this video is something that I think a lot of people look over, a lot of people don't think about, and that is the noise output that you're putting into the water, whether that be from your boat or from your bait. Okay. I want to first talk about from your boat. Okay. So everybody knows the old tale, you know, a good grandfather telling you to be quiet because the fish can hear you. And yes, a lot of people said that it's because your grandfather just doesn't want to hear you talk. But in reality, there's another side of that joke, which is the fish are extremely spooky. The fish can hear you talking. The fish can hear your music. Whatever you're doing on the boat, they can hear it. Okay. You need to have a hunter mentality when you're fishing because the spookiest fish, if you're throwing anything, everything that you throw, it doesn't matter what you're throwing at them, right? Like you could have everything perfect, everything dialed in, everything could be right in the moment. But if those fish are skidding away from you or spooking away from you, ain't a chance in the world that they're going to bite that lure, okay? So you can kiss that goodbye if you're being loud on the boat or dropping pliers in the boat. You need to be extremely cautious as to what you're doing, especially in shallow water. You do not need to be doing that in any kind of water really, but shallow water especially. You will spook the fish and they will know you're there, okay? So that applies on the boat, but what applies on the water when your lure hits the water? I've had some mixed opinions about this, but the more subtle that you can drop that lure in the water, the better, okay? The only exception I would say to this is glide baits or big swim baits, because those things kind of sound like big bait fish hitting the top of the water, so that might actually get a bigger bass to be intrigued to come see it. But 9 times out of 10, especially when you're on the lower medium of the spectrum where you're throwing really finesse presentations, you need to make sure that everything that hits that water, you're either thumbing the spool or you're making it land very quietly. I don't really know how to explain that, but it's a skill that, you know, big bass fishermen understand, right? So that's the second thing I want to talk about in this video is the amount of noise output you're putting in. You need to really minimize that if you want to have the best chance at catching a big bass. All right, guys, so the third thing I want to talk about in this video are trends, okay? Doesn't matter if you're a new fisherman or an old fisherman, okay? You have to keep up with what is going on at iCast. You have to keep up what's going on YouTube. You have to really pay attention to what's happening, because it could be new electronics, it could be new baits, new lures, it could be even just techniques that you've learned, right? Like all these things are new or trending, have not been tested on every single fishery, right? So you could be one of the first throwing these new techniques or these new lures or using this new technology. So if you're first to that, right, and those big bass have not seen or been, you know, susceptible to those things, then there's a good chance that you'll have a better opportunity at catching a bigger bass. It's plain and simple. That's a pretty simple one I wanted to cover though. All right, guys, so the fourth thing I want to talk about today, something that I think a lot of people also look over or don't think about when they go fishing, and that is boat control, right? That is the ability to make farther casts and not spook the fish, right? And this applies to river fishermen, this applies to lake fishermen, and this can somewhat apply to pond fishermen in terms of casting angle, right? But when it comes to river fishermen who are going after big bass, it can come down to a simple modification on your boat, like an anchor mount, right? Being able to, you know, pull your anchor up at will and let it drop at will, right? A lot of people just have these janky things on their boat, and it really jeopardizes your fishing. It makes it hell to fish in, right? Like as simple as adding a seat, adding a depth finder, adding things like that can make a big difference in your success rate out there on the water for big bass, right? Because I know a lot of people who fish out of kayaks, they're going to just float over an entire area and not cover it the right way, right? Like I cover things in 3 layers: the top of the water column, the middle of the water column, and the bottom of the water column, okay? If you can't cover those 3 things, you haven't covered the area properly, right? So that's what it comes down to river fishermen. You need to have the proper modifications on your boat. When it comes to lake fishermen, right? A lot of you have technology. I don't have any of this technology on my boat. I don't need it, right? But for the people that use technology and the people that are offshore fishing or just people that are even on the bank fishing, you need to have the ability to keep your boat away from the fish. Okay, the wind's pushing you into the fish. You need to have some kind of a modification or trolling motor, you know, accessory that allows you to stay off the fish but stay in the same spot. Spot lock is, you know, one of the biggest advancements in fishing has ever taken place. But when you're fishing on the lake, that's important. You know, you need to have the proper boat control when going after these big bass, because they will hear those trolling motors, they will hear those engines, and if you get too close to them, there's a good chance they're not going to bite anything you throw at them. All right, guys, so the last thing I want to talk about in this video is something that I love about fishing. It's something that really got me into the sport of fishing, and that is something called mental fortitude, right? Like, you could be doing everything perfectly, everything I mentioned in the video, but just do horrible on the water, right? Like, fishing has a real good way of humbling you. You know, a lot of times when you go out and have a good day fishing, you get on your high horse, and the very next day you do terrible, right? Like, fishing can have its highs and lows, you know, all across the board. But what it really teaches the angler is mental fortitude, right? Like, if you don't have the ability to continue to cast, like if you go fishing, right, as soon as you drop that boat in the water and your mindset isn't, I'm going to cover this amount of water, or I'm going to make 1,000 casts, or I'm going to continue to throw these 3 baits until my hands fall off, right? Like, if you don't have that mindset going into your fishing trip, then you are not a trophy bass hunter, right? Like, you are not a trophy bass fisherman, because the people who are successful doing this are the ones who don't quit, the ones who don't give up, the ones who fish from sun up to sundown. They don't complain about the heat. They don't complain at all, right? Like, all the conditions don't matter to them. They're just going to go out and fish. So, you know, you can get everything right. You can do everything perfect. But if you don't have the mental fortitude to take those days that aren't or less than ideal, then you're not going to catch big bass consistently. I'm sorry. But I wanted to kind of cut that straight to you. But that's going to be it for this video, guys. I hope you liked it. It was a little short video. I'm really passionate about catching big bass, so it really warms my heart to make videos like this and continue to make content for y'all. So make sure you guys hit the subscribe button if you don't want to miss another upload. But that's going to be it for this video, guys. I hope you like it. Keep it country. I'm going to keep it Carolina. We'll see you in the next one.